Hello everybody! I hope everybody's having a wonderful day. I want to welcome you to Computer Science 255. My name is Daniel Page. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Computer Science at San Francis Xavier University. Now, just before I get into anything too drastic here, my office is Annex 9D, but it's worth noting that I'm working remotely, so don't go to my office and just knock on it and say, Dan, are you there? I'm not there right now. I'm working remotely. So just keep that in mind. The primary way to reach me is by email. Email me at dpage@stFX.ca. So anyways, I'm hoping you're having a wonderful day. So this is the first lecture, and just because of the nature of this lecture containing information involving the course outline, I'm splitting it into two pieces. So first, this part will be a little bit about my expectations and a bit about the course outline, and then any remaining time will be dedicated to a second video where I have the remainder of the first lecture. So anyways, let's get started here. So first, I recommend that you do review the course outline. I have my copy right here. So there's going to be some things I'm going to hit on here, just so that everybody's clear what our expectations are, at least this term. So before anything, I should first talk a little bit about what this course is going to do on a weekly basis. So, in this course, for each week of our class, the first thing that'll happen every week of class is I'll have a weekly update video. So I'll have a weekly update video. So after, we're going to have each week of our class, and because this is an online class, I want to have some way of being able to deliver updates and discuss things like assignments with you. This will be done with weekly update videos. So, very simple. If I have an announcement I need to make that's going to be announcing, say, upcoming deadlines, or there's a frequently asked question, this video is if I want to discuss the upcoming assignment or some details about that assignment, weekly update video. That's basically your point of contact, for instance, if you want to refer to what I'm expecting of you in that week. So, that being said, do watch these each week. I'll make sure that they're posted on the course website. Keep in mind, the course website will be on Moodle. So, that brings me to discussing the nature of this course. So, this course is mostly asynchronous. That means that the lectures are not being done live. Instead, they're pre-recorded, just like this video. So, technically, we don't have a time machine, so you can't just come in here and be like, start asking me questions while this is being recorded. So, what's going to happen is these are going to be pre-recorded in advance, which kind of has, it's unfortunate, but at the same time, it's fairly flexible. So, for example, what's going to happen is I'm going to release the lecture videos for the week. So, for example, if you want to watch all the lectures for the content of this course at that week, you can just binge watch them in one sitting if you wanted to. Or you can watch them in a scheduled manner. So, for example, in the course outline, again, right here, what I'm going to recommend, so if, say, you're requiring a little bit of something to keep you on task, say something that keeps you on schedule, because some people, you just need to have something that keeps you on schedule. I've allocated 3 time slots, which would normally, if we were doing this class in person, because we're doing it online, in person, this would be kind of the replacement slots for which you would normally go to lecture for this class. So those were sitting on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Just take a look at the course outline. You don't have to watch the videos during that time. Like I said, they're going to be available right at the start of the week. So right on the beginning of Monday, you'll get this update video and the lectures for that week. So this is something if you need something to say, hey, look, I need to sit down. This is time during the day where I can watch the lectures. I highly advise you watch the lectures and take notes from the lectures. And so write notes as you're taking and listening to the lectures. Just as if I was giving it to you in person. That's what I generally expect, because normally in my classes, I don't give you written notes. They're usually something we create in class together. So that being said, I would recommend, if you can, to take written notes while you're watching the lectures. Now, because of the online nature of this course, I want to be as accessible as possible when it comes to delivery of the course content. So I've prepared, in these specific circumstances, written notes that are supplemental to the videos, so the lectures themselves. So for example, if something's really hard to read on the board, or you have difficulties writing, this will give you an option for case you have difficulties taking notes. So I'll have those on the course website. So that being said, depending on what your preferred learning style is, it's going to be pretty flexible. That's the key thing. But like I said, I highly recommend taking notes. Now, on that note, it's worth noting that that if you need a supplemental reading textbook, like a textbook where you can refer to, if say you want to learn more details beyond the lectures. Keep in mind my lectures are pretty self-contained, but I recommend this textbook. A lot of the material I'll be talking about in this class is also in this book. You might also find it kind of appealing because it has some Java code in here as well. I'll get into that more in a moment. So I recommend this one. For example, I'll talk more about it later. But it's called Data Structures and Algorithms in Java. So just take a look at the course outline. It's fairly accessible online. So that's the lecture. So now you might ask, okay, well, how can I interact with you, Dan? So here we go. Here we go. Here's the idea. We're going to have optional meeting times. So every single week of classes, assuming there's a need for doing so, I will have an optional meeting time of length about an hour to an hour and a half, depending on if it meets a sufficient need. Where what we're going to do is, remember, it's optional. You can come and hang out with me in a conference-style meeting virtually, where what I'll do is I'll bring in some prepared material with some additional examples, and also any additional things that maybe might be worth discussing with the class. But this time is mostly for the class as a whole to get together. So for example, I want to try to do some communal things where maybe I might ask a little bit about you, some of your interests, or something like that to keep it a little bit more lively. So this will be a time where, as a group, we can get together and you can ask me questions about the lectures, or we can walk through some examples. So you might find this very helpful, especially if you have a lot of questions and from the lectures. So basically, if I don't get a whole lot of questions during the meeting, I might try to give you some examples. But I must stress this word optional. You're not required to come to this. And furthermore, there is going to be no new required material in these meetings. So I will not talk about new required materials in here. In contrast, what I will do is I'll maybe talk about examples of things from the lectures. However, any examples I will post on the course website. So you don't have to come directly, you don't have to come to these. That's basically what I'm saying. But I highly encourage it. It's very important to come and hang out with your instructor. So anyways, lastly, of course, if say, for example, you want to talk to me on an individual level or maybe with another classmate, I'm going to have office hours. So these office hours, they are as scheduled on the course website and in the course outline. I've set aside a lot of hours, so I should be fairly accessible during a good portions of the day during the week. So it's worth noting that this and the optional meeting times are tentatively going to be done through Microsoft Teams. So generally the conduct will be that you send me a message in text and say, hey, look, Dan or Daniel, I want to come and talk to you. I have some questions, and just wait for me to respond back to you and jump in and join with you, because there's always a possibility I could be talking with another student in a video call. Now, just because of the nature of this class, there's a very real possibility I could be sitting in a video call with another student trying to help them. And it's also worth noting that I'm only given a strict set of guidelines for which I can be fair to all the students. So when it comes to these things, when it comes to video calls, Typically, I'm going to hold at discretion that I only do so during optional meeting times and office hours. Otherwise, just send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. I always am. So, that being said, this is generally how a week's going to operate. Beginning of the week, weekly update video. You'll watch the lecture some point at that week. And there's going to be these optional meeting times. And it's worth noting, you might ask, okay, well, when are these going to take place? It's very simple. I'm going to send out a questionnaire and I'm going to see what time slots might work best for most students. And I'll try to pick that. So, whatever works best in the general circumstance. It'll be ideally sometime during the day. Nothing too strange. Okay, so these are kind of the general things that you'll do in this class when it comes to activities that aren't examined. So my expectations is you try to keep up with these things each week. Do not hold off on them, okay? So let's talk about the evaluation in this course, because these are the other things you'll be doing in this class. So the first thing worth noting is that you'll have assignments. And there's going to be two kinds of assignments. There are written assignments. So these will be assignments for which you have a set of problems and I ask you to solve them or do whatever I've instructed you to do. These will normally require you to do some thinking, and then you might have to actually go down and sit down and do a little bit of analysis or maybe try proving a claim. I'll be very big on trying to give you some feedback if I can. I'm usually quite big on getting feedback to you guys. So these will be done whether it be on paper and pencil or pen, or if you want to type it up, you're more than welcome to do that. You're also more than welcome if you have a digital format for which you can do it, like on a tablet, you can also do that as well. The big thing is that I want those assignments and as a single PDF file, which I'll give instructions how to do this when we get there. Likewise, if say you're doing it on paper, you're more than welcome to take high quality shots of your pictures as long as you can assemble it into a single PDF file, or you can just simply, what I would recommend is just scanning each page. So there's going to be some of these, and then there's going to be programming assignments. So the other blend, and these are going to be what most of the assignments are. It's going to mostly alternate between these two kinds of assignments. So the programming assignments, these are going to be done in Java. So I must stress that this course is not a programming course. It is through and through a computer science class. So that being said, I'm going to be, because obviously this is a second year computer science class, and you've had to have had some experience with some programming language up to this point. So in this class, I'll be using the programming language Java. So if you come from a class like 162, this should be pretty natural for you because Java is actually a lot more of a lenient version of what C++ is like. You'll find there's a lot of conveniences to whatever your preference might be. Maybe you might like it, maybe you won't like it. That's cool. But I want you to see this. So you're going to be doing some programming assignments where I'm going to get you to implement ideas, in particular algorithms and data structures, and maybe try to solve a couple of problems that'll get you to implement in these assignments. I like to make my assignments very concrete things that you can clearly see the applications of the ideas we've been doing in class for. So you'll find these maybe at first of like, okay, well, why is he making us do this? You might appreciate it later down the line. Either way, it's going to be a good time. It's worth noting that in this book, if you find yourself looking for a good Java primer, so learn a little bit about Java, the first chapter of this book talks a little bit about Java and some of the basics like primitive types and how they work in Java. You'll find that a lot of things in Java, if you're familiar with C++, they'll pretty much lend over conceptually. In fact, there'll be a lot of things that will seem very simple once you come from a class in C++. Okay. It's otherwise noted that I will do a couple of small tutorials on Java as well. But remember, the onus is on you to pick up this programming language and ultimately use it. For the first assignment, I'll be giving you something I'll be almost akin to a tutorial on Java. So that will hopefully be helpful for this class. So You'll be given assignments. Then there's going to be two open book term tests. Because I'm not the biggest fan of using midterms if I can. What these are going to be, now normally I do closed book term tests. These are generally for me to give you some exposure to the kinds of questions I can ask on a final exam. Likewise, to give you some practice and general feel for where my expectations are when it comes to how I expect you to answer questions. So you also will find that if you look at the course outline, how much these gradings are worth, that these aren't worth a whole lot. Now that shouldn't be to dissuade you from doing them. It's because I want you to do them so you can get feedback from me. Now it's worth noting they're open book just because of the nature of this class. But you should find it if you feel very confident about this, and if you could imagine yourself getting away from using the notes or the textbook or any other resources, that should be assigned to you that you're doing pretty good. However, remember it's an open book test, so don't feel like you have to restrict yourself at all. Okay, these will be scheduled at the times outlined in the course outline. So there'll be a time for which you'll given a time window. And this time window is when you have to complete the test. It'll follow very much similar rules to the written assignments will. Except you'll be given a time window where you're going to be able to see the test, complete it, and then submit it back to me. So, that being said, it shouldn't be too terribly complicated. I like to keep things pretty straightforward. Then lastly, of course, there's the final exam. The final exam will be worth as much as I have in the course outline. And it's worth noting that don't know necessarily the format of this final exam. It will follow in line with StFX's policies when it comes to the final exams in December. But those are what I'm going to examine you on in this course. So hopefully you find this pretty reasonable. We're going to have a good time here today. And in particular for this course. So a couple of things I also want to note here, just for the sake of clarity. So remember, look at the course outline. Now, one other thing I want to talk about is academic integrity. Now, because of this being an online class, it's very easy and very tempting to go look online for solutions to the problems on your assignments. Don't do this. Likewise, don't ask your friends to copy their homework. I will realize this probably pretty fast. Otherwise, I recommend not doing it. Academic dishonesty, in particular plagiarism, or this type of cheating is very serious, and I do not have any tolerance for it. So that being said, be very wary about copying from sources, because I recommend not doing that. Remember, these assignments, for example, or these tests, they are your individual work. So I like to impose and give you my restrictions to my expectations almost all the time. That's at least what I try to do. So my expectation is that these assignments are being done individually. Well, this is done individually, these tests are done individually, and the final exam is done individually. So just out of respect for me, I expect you to understand that these are meant for you to do. Not you and your friend, not your entire group of friends, not to go on Stack Exchange and ask them for code. Don't do that. You're more than welcome to ask useful questions online. However, there's a very big difference between looking up how string concatenation works in Java versus looking up the entire source code of what I'm asking you to do on an assignment. Those are two very different things. The first is okay. The second one, not so much, because that isn't your work. That is you using somebody else's work. And that defeats the purpose of the exercise. Remember, when you do things like that, these assignments are meant to help you gain a mastery over the material that you're studying. So the only person beyond those your peers that are taking the class too, you're also not being fair to yourself, because you're not giving your expectations and meeting those with what I've set out for you. So in that sense, you're not meeting the bar for which you feel by taking this class, you should be able to meet. So hopefully that's clear. So basically, I was like, don't cheat. One rule I can also say, just as a piece of advice, if it makes it a little easier, is if you're talking to a friend, whether it be like over Skype or on Discord or something, or if you're talking to a person on campus, one of your friends, if you're having a discussion with them, leave the discussion with nothing written down. If you write things on a board, for example, erase the board. If you write down things where you're discussing ideas, erase it, delete any pictures you may have taken of it on your phone. This keeps you away from the inkling to say, hey, look, I'm going to use what they've given me in our discussion, and instead forces you to have to remember the discussion you had and maybe have to write it down yourself. Because remember, this is your work, not theirs. So hopefully I'm clear with that. So likewise, we're going to have a great time here. So I just want to make sure that this is all clear. Beyond that, I think that's everything in terms of the course outline that I really wanted to touch upon. So I'm just going to give you a general gist of what this course is going to be like, just because I feel like I need to do that. So for example, when we talk about these programming assignments, we'll make certain assumptions about your background because you're taking a second-year computer science course. For example, I should know that you know what an array is. You should know what a linked list is. Primitive types. So these will be things that I'll touch upon when I get into my Java review. However, my expectation is because you've taken a class like 162 before this one, that you should be familiar with the concept of an array or something like a linked list or so-called a linear or link structure. You should be familiar with these couple concepts. I'll be starting pretty much at the base level, defining things like data structures, algorithms, and I'll be talking more about what an algorithm is, giving you more precise definitions of how we can analyze an algorithm, and I'll be giving you a general framework for which we can try to solve problems, which is often the way that computer scientists view these types of problems. So you'll find a lot of this early stuff pretty fundamental for how we discuss problems, at least in this course or possibly in other courses in the future. Because this often is clouded in the language for which computer scientists typically operate. So in that sense, it's pretty fundamental. So I'll be drawing from some examples of problems that you may have seen in the past, or even data structures you've seen in the past. If not, they're going to be a nice review. From there, we're going to talk about dictionaries. So, for example, the common problem of retrieving records from a big collection of data. Like, this is a pretty standard problem that appears almost everywhere when it comes to large systems. We'll be encountering this as a nice way of talking about trade-offs, which is going to be a general theme in this class, where you're going to find that using one data structure over another might have pros and cons. Beyond that, we're going to start talking about trees and all sorts of fun other structures. So some of these you may have heard of in 162, but I'm going to go through a brief review over these stuff from this content. And then we're going to be moving into graphs, and I'll talk about some fun examples from there. Now, in particular involving trees, you may have seen things like binary search trees. I'm going to talk about some neat versions of binary search trees that are able to self-balance, which is quite a neat feature. And beyond that, we'll see some more examples. But regardless, we're going to be exploring a variety of topics, and hopefully something that you'll find very fascinating. But anyways, with that being said, this concludes the discussion of the course outline and my general expectations. But that being said, just watch the next video, okay? So, have yourself a beautiful day.